life-saving contribution that someone who is an organ owner has done. To me, I think that helps really tell Jason's story in a wonderful way. So tonight, it's funny how things work too with some connections that have been made. I didn't really know Emmett would put him on the radio, and then come to find out we're basically neighbors, and to get to know him and his family so well since then. It's kind of funny how things work. So stay with me on this one. Gordon and Tanya Lamb live in the neighborhood, and they got to know Emmett and Tori, and then they came last year to the event, and were really impressed and inspired by what they saw. So Gordon's sister is Deborah. Deborah is Mike's wife. They're from Pittsburgh, and they came tonight because Mike has an extraordinary story to share with you. So please help me welcome Mike Lee, heart transplant recipient.
Can y'all hear me? I'm happy to be here. It's actually quite an honor for me to be here to share my story with you. And if you don't mind, go to the next picture here. I just want to say again, we're from Pittsburgh. I'm here with my lovely wife, Deborah, she's sitting up there. This is our 6-year-old son, Christopher. This picture was taken at a wedding in Hawaii. And Christopher was the ring bearer. Clearly, you can see where he gets his good looks. We come to visit often here. Even though from Pittsburgh, we're no strangers to Charlotte, we come to visit Tanya and Gordon all the time. And if you think this picture is confusing, if you go to the next picture. All right, so if you don't know them, you think that the moms mixed up their kids. So that's Tanya with her older son Gordon and with Christopher. And so I'm just so glad they're 6 months apart, and we had a chance to spend time with one another tonight. And it's always about making time for family. So if we go to the next slide. This is a little bit unorthodox, but for whatever reason it came to mind. Shortly after my heart transplant, which was 4 years ago, one of the first few things that I did was to breathe. And there's a certain breathing technique that I learned years ago. And it also serves as a reminder of how fortunate I am to be alive and well. And it's also sort of giving thanks to God and my donor. So if you don't mind indulging me here, you take your left hand, put it on your chest, and then your right hand on your abdomen. And you're going to breathe. Typically, people like to expand their heart, their chest. What you want to do is expand your abdomen, so sort of a balloon. And so this is the deep breathing technique. And you want to preferably be able to breathe through your nostrils. But if you don't like that, then you can purse your lips like you're going to suck a straw and breathe through your mouth. So on the count of 3, let's all breathe together. 1, 2, 3, inhale. Exhale. One time. Inhale. Exhale. Feel much better? It certainly helps me before I start to tell my story. I've been known to get a little bit emotional at times. So if you don't mind going, so here's my story. So 4 years ago, I had my transplant, 2010 October. If someone had told me this 20 years ago that I would have needed it, I would say, no way, crazy. I was pretty healthy growing up. I have no known family history of heart disease. This all kind of precipitated back in 2004. Deb and I wanted to start a family. We tried to get pregnant. A lot of it, the challenges were coming for me, so I went to go see a urologist who started to prescribe me a series of antibiotics to address the issue. Well, little did I know, I was very allergic to sulfur-based drug, in particular Bactrim. And when I took that, my face swelled up like a balloon, my neck swelled up, and was constricting my breathing. It was really scary, and I just immediately had to go into the hospital. And they pumped a lot of steroids in me to calm my body down. And since then, just to me, in my mind, hasn't been the same. because then shortly after that, I developed an autoimmune disorder with my immune system, something wrong with it, but no one to this day can really identify what it is. And there's another trend to this story where I married my wife with 3 brothers, 4 to be 1. He's the rheumatologist, and he helped us get through that and have guided us since. But then a year after that, in 2005, summer of 2005, I was carrying something somewhat heavy in front of my house, and shortly after that, I just collapsed. I fell like a rock, and I had a seizure. And the next thing I know, I woke up and I was blind in my left eye. And I could just remember my neighbor saying, "Are you okay?" Thinking, oh. The paramedics came, picked me up, applied anesthesia, and then again, I woke up in the hospital. This is one of the most traumatic experiences, and I still remember this, because what I didn't realize with anesthesia, there's 2 components to it. One is sedation, and the other one is paralyzation. They're usually supposed to go together. The sedation wore off first, so now I'm awake. Nobody around me can tell that I'm awake. I couldn't open my eyes, I couldn't move my arms and legs, I couldn't breathe out in my strength. So then I realized I was hooked up on life support. It kind of feels like I'm drowning, but somehow I'm still breathing. And I could hear in my background with the doctor talking to my wife about how I might need a heart transplant. I could hear my wife sobbing. And it was a long night. They were carting me from room to room to do a series of exams. One point, I was in a machine. I think it was an MRI machine, I could see. And it was jerking around, and all of a sudden, it knocked the tube out of me. I'm thinking, I can't alert anybody. I don't think the nurses know. So I'm just laying there, sort of kind of dying. It was a good 2-3 minutes. And I could just see at the time I was 34, so I could see my age flash before me, but this is the way I'm gonna go. And all of a sudden, just last second, I hear the nurse say, "Oh my," like literally in these words, "Oh my," the tube came off. No wonder his face was turning blue. And then I passed out. Long story short, I was in a cardiac ICU for 3 whole days. I was diagnosed with myocarditis, or the inflammation of the heart. The heart is enlarged. Typically, there's maybe like a 2/3 chance, or like 1/3 chance of it maybe recovering in a few months, maybe another 1/3 chance recovering in a few years. In some cases, you might never recover at all. On the 3rd day, the cardiologist was taking a look at the function of my heart, and he was amazed. He said, "I don't get this, but your heart is actually back to normal size. In fact, we're going to take you off the life support and see what happens." So they unplugged me, and I was fine. Everything was normal again. And so then I was discharged out of the cardiac ICU. I remember this. I just walked off, and I'm pushing my wheelchair out the door. And I thought, man, what a life-changing experience. So what did I do? I went back to work, and I worked even harder. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was just really focused on my career. We still didn't have Christopher at the time. I worked for a large management consulting firm, and I'm just traveling. Having a family is still important to us, and I'm thinking, well, I'm healthy. If there's an opportunity that comes, let's go ahead and adopt. So in 2008, we get a call from Gordon and Deb's oldest brother, Gary. And he happened to be practicing OBGYN in Phoenix, Arizona. There was a gal who was pregnant, was going to have a baby in 2 weeks, had it all set up. There was some other family who was going to adopt that child. That fell through. And he asked us, "Are you all interested in adopting?" So we met this young lady, the night before Christopher was born. And we adopted him 72 hours later. So that was 2008. This is under the premise that I'm healthy now. 1 year later, in 2009, I got on a treadmill, and I couldn't run for more than 2 minutes. Because I remember this, I know I was stubborn too. I'm thinking, this doesn't seem right, but I felt this heavy pressure in my chest. My head felt like it was going to explode, and I was just short of breath. So I tried a couple more times, and I was so stubborn with this, and thinking, man. So the next day I'm in the office, I just said, I'm just going to take a bus, and I'm going to hop, and I'm just going to go back to the hospital and get it checked out. Second heart failure, advanced heart failure, and I'm back in the hospital. I never made it back to the office. They take a picture of my heart, and I developed fibrosis. So they were hoping that maybe my heart would somehow rebound again. Back in 2005, it just didn't. The third brother, Deb, has is a cardiologist. Great. And he's now close enough. He's moving around. He used to be in North Carolina. I was in Columbus, Ohio at the time it happened. So he drives over and just helping us to navigate through that. Because at that point, just the word transplant, that's a very scary word. And here I am with my autoimmune disorder and thinking this is going to be more complicated, I think, than the normal one. What they gave me was an initial prognosis saying, you know what, you don't have to worry about this for another 5 to 6 years. 5 to 6 years. 1 year later, I'm in 2010 now, I had to travel to Europe. I was in Brussels, Belgium for a project. One of the things that you do in Belgium is you gotta buy Belgian chocolates, right? I'm not gonna go there and work and come away empty. So I go to the Grand Plaza, which is at the bottom of the hill. I came away with 2 huge bags of chocolates. Of course, none of it's for me, right? I'm on a strict diet at this point. And I gotta climb back up this hill and stairs and hills to get back to my hotel. I couldn't even make past the first hill. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is gonna happen to me now. I had to have my colleagues help me with the chocolates. Because, heaven forbid, I don't want to make the headlines in Belgium. Some Asian American died of carrying chocolates. I'm not going to have that, so help me, please. So I go back and see the cardiologist, and he was shocked. He says, you know what, I'm sorry, you're going to have to look for that new heart in about 5 to 6 months. It was a particularly difficult summer for me. My father had died. I had to have that transplant, and my grandmother died, so it was a particularly difficult summer. Now, when you get to a point where you're thinking, okay, I'm going to have to be on this wait list, another thought came to mind. Okay, wait, where am I going to get this heart? It's not that it actually has to die, for me. A difficult concept for me. And then I'm thinking on the other side, but we just have Christopher, he's only 2 at the time. I can't leave my wife and then have him without a dad. I promise I wouldn't do this, but it keeps coming back. And so I made a plea. I remember I made a prayer to God saying, it's time for me to go, it's fine. I don't think I'm done here on earth. And we're just all thinking about this, seeing Christopher grow up. So I said, please, if there's anything possible, let me stay a little longer. Thank you. Now, I didn't really anticipate getting a heart anytime soon. Just relatively with my youth, I guess. Well, I'm 43 now, but every time people tell me I'm still, there's always somebody older telling me how young, which is a nice thing. But relatively young, and outwardly, I didn't look all that sick. I really couldn't tell how sick I was on the inside. 2 months. 2 months I get a call. There was an 18-year-old girl in Kansas who died of a car accident. No takers in Kansas or anywhere in that region. Bunch of hospitals called, and it was the one in Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. And then I got the call. So you know what, you weren't even the first on that list. There was another gentleman before you, but he's too big for that heart. It's a perfect size for you. It's a perfect blood type. It's an O positive, which by the way is a pretty high demand and low in supply. And it was right there for me. It's an 18-year-old heart. It's pristine. You have to take it. So I did. And ever since then, I just can't imagine. I've had just a very, thank God, I just had a really smooth recovery. All this 4 years, really not much has happened. It's almost like God heard me, and I've been able to enjoy, being with Christopher. So with that, there's one thing that I had to do coming out of it, is that I really needed to somehow get in touch with the donor family. I just, in part, to make peace within myself, some sense of reconciliation, some way to thank them. So I did write a letter, and it took almost a year for it to come back, but thank God it did. And I got a letter back, and they even gave me a couple of pictures of the family and the girl. And her name is Lucinda, but these are the parents, Josephine and Mariana. I just wanted to share this excerpt with you. sorry for not writing to you earlier. It was very difficult for me because I did not know what to write to the person who received my daughter's heart. But we would like to meet you personally sometime. My love transcends life, and I know that my daughter lives through the recipient. I do not speak English, but I love to keep in contact with you, the person who received her organ gift. And it is a gift. It's very special for me and my family. And it was a comforting letter to receive. I believe that Lucida didn't die in vain, that on the other side of death there's beauty and hope, and that death serves some sort of a godly purpose beyond what I can comprehend. In some ways that I have to make a difference in the world and make a difference in the lives of others. So with that, I generally live by sort of three tenets, guiding principles for me, and I'm still not very good at it, but I try to do this every day. First one is do not be anxious, but be thankful. Every morning when I wake up, I think of three things, at least three things that I can be thankful for. Second one is to make that difference in the lives of others, my family, my friends, my neighbors. And 3 months ago, I voluntarily resigned from my work to focus on Christopher. He was going to start first grade. I just wanted to make sure that he has a smooth transition. So I've been a Mr. Mom. And I'll tell you this, that job is a whole lot harder than the one I had. And then the last one is to look for silver linings. I know this is an overused cliche, but in my own personal definition, I take and learn from the negative experiences and then find the opportunity to make them positive. So with that, Emma, do you mind? Have you all ever seen the movie Silver Linings Playbook? Okay, for some of you haven't seen it, please do. It's one of my all-time favorites, in part because of Jennifer Lawrence. And I did have a secret man crush with Bradley Cooper. But I feel something like this, right? Do everything that you can, right? And if you stay positive, then you'll have a shot at a silver lining. And you find silver linings all the time in organ donation and transplant. No matter how horrific that experience is, or that feeling of despair that comes from it. The beauty of it is that sense of renewed life and hope. You can only get it through transplant. If you flip to the last slide, I Googled images using 2 words, breathe and silver lining. And these are the pictures that I saw. And that's what we did together, folks. We breathed together to celebrate life and renewed hope. And I know that pictures is worth 1,000 words. I just wanted to leave this thought with you as you think about what miracles that happen each and every day when people donate their organs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you, Deborah, for traveling and sharing him with us. Thank you so much for that. We've talked a little bit about some coincidences tonight, and Emmett mentioned how Jason's story